I'm going to show you some cool things today. So, Carrie Burchell, I try to do these once a week, these shine like a North Star. And the purpose is really to get you thinking about whatever influence you have in the world. Some of us have official leadership titles, other people serve communities, church groups, family members. I've got a neighbor, I tease her that she's the community matriarch. And that's in part her role, but she is such a historian around the neighborhood, really influences and leads the community, although she may not have a community title per se, right? So we want to help you shine your brightest, regardless of your role, and embrace the leadership and influence that you have. So today's work is some really interesting stuff around horizontal and vertical leadership. So what I want to share with you is just a concept, and then think about where you're facilitating leadership and learning, because there's a difference between horizontal and vertical leadership and where that best suits what you're looking at. So let's dive in together. So first of all, let me just introduce a couple of concepts. So learning wise, if we take a classroom, our typical experience in classrooms is that they are often the same level. So when people are exposed to the general development of the people around them, it becomes horizontal learning. So you're still getting things from other people, you're learning in that context, you're not necessarily being stretched to think of things in radically new ways. So horizontal learning is valuable because it gives you a chance to sort of reinforce the concepts and the knowledge that you have in meaningful ways, right? To really sharpen the saw. So that's the horizontal learning. If you take conversely this story and experience back in the Caribbean, gosh, this picture is a couple years old. I worked in the Caribbean and was the principal of a kindergarten to grade 9 school. And you can see here that it was multi-age, right? So this is our assembly in the Caribbean with the noise of waves in the background. And because there are different kids from different ages, it becomes vertical learning, meaning learning that is going to stretch us because we're exposed to things higher and lower than our current development area. So learning in the horizontal way can make a lot of sense, right? It's a chance to sort of fine tune, solidify, develop the habits, implement the knowledge that we've learned, and really sort of create patterns of behavior and just how we see the world. The vertical learning can be helpful because it's going to stretch you, and it's often a game changer. Like, you're not showing up the same way when you have a vertical learning experience. So I've talked recently a little bit about my journey in this entrepreneurial space. I've been on my own 100% consulting for 2.5 years now. And I've made fun of my own like marketing stuff, right? My PowerPoints, the kind of proposals I used to send out to companies. I mean, gosh, I see things differently now. I'm a different leader. My confidence, my identity, I've thrown myself into this vertical learning category. Now, if we transition some of those concepts to leadership, we can have leaders that just focus on their specific department, right? So that becomes horizontal learning because you're focused on your piece of the pie and you're working the magic, right? You're getting your team really zeroed in on the horizontal piece. So you're helping them learn their job, you're helping the team activate and execute on whatever they need to do. So they're learning to rock their world, okay? Conversely, you could look at a company perspective, which is going to help you with that vertical leadership and learning. So when you sort of think outside of your department and you're throwing yourself into an environment where you can stretch, see things from different perspectives, appreciate how your piece of the department connects with other arms of the organization, that can throw you into vertical learning and vertical leadership. So my question for you is, when have you recently experienced horizontal learning and conversely, vertical learning? And where have you also facilitated those two things, right? Both have a place. So the first sort of piece of what I'm sharing with you today is just some reflection on how am I growing and developing, right? So I'm currently working on my next level coaching certificate, which is probably some horizontal learning in that, it extends skills that I already have. It's not radically shifting how I show up. It's a stretch. Like I'm diving into it, rigorous work, but it's not going to change my identity on the other side, right? Vertical learning might be when I went full-time into consulting, right? So my first career was in teaching with a unionized school setting. What do I know about advocating and selling and pitching, right? It was very much an environment that was very controlled. So I've thrown myself into vertical learning. In the same breath, I see leaders all the time struggling with why their employees don't get it. And I've told them and I've explained what to do, and I don't understand why they don't get it. And us sort of in leadership missing this mark of our responsibility as leaders now to really be teachers. And how do we thrust our employees and the people that we serve into that vertical learning? Right? The horizontal learning may not cut it for the kind of work and innovation that you need in your environment. So vertical learning in the workplace can be led by you, and that can be exposing people on your team to different shadowing opportunities, visiting different companies, really putting themselves with people and in experiences that are outside of their sort of sphere of comfort, right? Their horizontal world. I remember once doing some mastermind groups, which I'm launching in January, by the way. Love you to be a part of them. And there was a gentleman there, a leader who was dynamic, committed. He was in the mastermind group for years, just loved the vertical leadership that gave him, right? So he's working in this mastermind group with people of different roles, different arms, different specialties, right? He pushed himself to think outside of his box. And at the end of the year 3, we were discussing like who's going to continue, what did that look like, what were people's needs in their own development. I remember him like leaning back and kind of pushing his paper aside and going, oh, I just can't do it anymore. I just can't reflect anymore. Like I just can't dive deep into this vertical learning. I mean, if he had the words at the time, that's what he was identifying. So what he was saying is, I need to slow down and really be still with my horizontal learning, like implement all of this new learning into my regular work, right? He'd done the vertical learning and needed to find a way to integrate how he has shifted as a leader and in his identity. Let me just get back to my horizontal, regular foundational stuff, strengthen it, deepen it, implement what I learned in the vertical learning process. But I do not need to be a part of the mastermind. Give me a break for a while. I'm done the deep dive, right? And that's a really telling story because there is a place for horizontal leadership and vertical. Like both are valuable. Learning's valuable, right? So maybe it's time for you to join one of my masterminds. Check me out at www.carrieburchell.com to see if they're a fit for you. And also think about where are the times when you've done horizontal learning and what are the opportunities for you to throw yourself in some vertical leadership, right? The world is requiring us as leaders to innovate. What used to work is just not cutting it anymore. And you don't get into that innovative space unless you thrust yourself into some vertical learning opportunities. So that's my skinny story for today. Feel free to check me out at carrieburchell.com. You can sign up for a time with me. Happy to chat about just your world, whether or not you're doing the masterminds, anything. I just find the conversation with leaders so enlightening and powerful. And of course, you can check out the masterminds there too. Until then, we will see you next time on Shine Like a North Star.